Let's rewind to the flashy, futuristic 1950s. When cars weren't just machines, they were rolling dreams. Post-war America was bursting with optimism, and automakers went absolutely wild with ideas. Some were brilliant, others not so much. From bizarre designs to features that make you scratch your head, we're counting down 10 of the strangest car concepts the 50s ever dared to put on wheels. Are you ready to visit these mobile disasters? If so, buckle up. Number 10. 1958 Buick Limited. Buick used to be the symbol of accessible American luxury. It was the car that said you'd made it without going full Cadillac. But this 1958 Limited, it felt like a tone-deaf attempt to outdo everyone. And it failed spectacularly. At over 19 feet long and weighing nearly 5,000 pounds, this thing was more yacht than automobile. And remember, this was a time when city streets and parking were much tighter than today. You couldn't just slide into a parking spot, you needed a docking station. Under the hood was a 364 cubic inch V8 engine. Sounds powerful, right? And sure, it had power. But the fuel economy was ridiculously poor, often only getting a few miles per gallon. We're talking single digits here. This car drank gasoline like it was going out of style. And while the interior was luxurious with leather seats and full-power accessories, it still wasn't enough to make it a car you'd actually want to drive daily. The real problem wasn't just the size, though. That was certainly an issue. It was the design philosophy. Add more chrome, add more bulk, add more flash. That was Buick's entire strategy. But the result was a cumbersome, expensive car that couldn't keep up with more balanced competitors. Buick only sold about 7,400 units before killing the model off in 1959. 1 year of production. That's all it took for Buick to realize they'd made a mistake. The Limited became a classic example of what happens when style overwhelms substance. When you focus so much on looking impressive that you forget to build something people actually want to own. Number 9. 1957 Lincoln Premier. If you wanted to turn heads in 1957, the Lincoln Premier was your car. With flamboyant styling, chrome everywhere, and a colossal presence, it proudly declared to everyone within a 5-mile radius that you had arrived. The problem was, it was so over the top, it became overwhelming. This wasn't subtle luxury, this was luxury screaming at you through a megaphone. Stretching almost 19 feet long and weighing over 5,000 pounds, navigating it through tight city streets was a nightmare. The front was bulky, the rear sat high, and visibility was poor. Driving it felt like commanding a ship. A very slow, very thirsty ship. Even with a powerful V8 engine, the car was sluggish and consumed fuel horribly, even by 1950 standards. And that's saying something because the 50s weren't exactly known for fuel efficiency. The interior was truly luxurious with thick, upholstered seats, premium materials, and plenty of power amenities. Lincoln didn't skimp on the inside, but behind the sparkle was a lack of innovation. While competitors like Cadillac were introducing advanced technology and actual engineering improvements, Lincoln seemed stuck in place. They were polishing chrome while everyone else was moving forward. With a high price tag, an oversized chassis, and poor real-world performance, the Premier couldn't compete where it mattered. Sure, it looked impressive sitting in your driveway, but actually driving it? That was a different story entirely. Today, it's remembered as a relic of an era when American automakers chose big, bold, and flashy over refinement and efficiency. Style over substance, flash over function, and the market eventually punished them for it. Number 8. 1958 Lincoln Continental Mark III. Some cars make you feel like royalty behind the wheel, but the Mark III, it made you feel like you were commanding a battleship. And not in a good way. Nearly 20 feet long and weighing over 5,000 pounds, the Lincoln Continental Mark III was the definition of excess in both form and function. Lincoln aimed to challenge Cadillac with a top-tier luxury model. They loaded it with impressive features for the time. 6-way power seats, power trunk, power windows. Everything that could be powered was powered. On paper, it was advanced, but in reality, everything was either too heavy, too flimsy, or both. The engineering was ambitious, but the execution was questionable at best. The boxy design, stunted tail fins, and tank-like front end made the Mark III look more like a fortress than a luxury car. Some people loved the look, most people were just confused by it. And when it came to driving, its massive 430 cubic inch V8 engine couldn't overcome the weight or the shockingly poor fuel economy. This thing sucked down gas like it was personal. Priced at nearly $6,000 at the time, the Mark III competed directly with the Cadillac Eldorado. But it lacked the finesse to win that battle. Cadillac had refinement, Lincoln had ambition, and unfortunately, ambition doesn't always win. Today, the Mark III isn't remembered for its success. It's remembered for representing an era when automakers believed bigger automatically meant better. When they thought if you just made something large enough and powerful enough, people would buy it. They were wrong. The Mark III stands as a monument to automotive hubris, a car that wanted to be the best but settled for being the biggest. Number 7. 1955 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz. In the golden age of American flash, Cadillac was the ultimate symbol of wealth and style. And the Eldorado Biarritz, it was the jewel in the crown. Priced at over $6,200 new, that's nearly $70,000 today, this was a car built not for driving fun but for making an entrance. And boy, did it make an entrance. At first glance, the Eldorado Biarritz is a masterpiece. Soaring tail fins, gleaming chrome, stylish two-door, convertible shape, it's absolutely gorgeous. It photographs beautifully, it's the kind of car that stops traffic. But look closer and the cracks begin to show. Despite a 331 cubic inch V8 engine with 270 horsepower, the car was too heavy to be nimble. The wide body and low ground clearance made city driving a chore. This wasn't a car you drove for enjoyment, it was a car you drove to be seen. The biggest issue? You paid for the looks, but you didn't get real innovation. No groundbreaking technology, no superior performance. Just flash, lots and lots of flash. And that flash came at a price. The gold trim, leather seats, and custom parts made maintenance expensive and replacement parts rare. Even when the car was new, fixing it was a nightmare. Today, good luck finding original components. The Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz was certainly a status symbol. Nobody could argue with that. Pull up in one of these and everyone knew you had money. But it also represented the idea of buying luxury for the image, not the substance. Of choosing appearance over actual quality. A visually impressive car? Absolutely. But ultimately, a lavish toy built for showing off, not for real-world use. It was the automotive equivalent of wearing a tuxedo to the grocery store. Sure, you'll turn heads, but everyone knows you're trying way too hard. Number 6. 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham. In America in 1959, the cost of a house could also buy you a Cadillac Eldorado Brougham. With a starting price of over $13,000 back then, nearly $135,000 today, it was one of the most expensive American cars ever produced. So what made it so costly? The answer is sheer opulence. Ridiculous. Over-the-top, completely unnecessary opulence. Interiors upholstered in leather and wool. Polished stainless steel everywhere. Even a steel roof with bright chrome trim. It came with almost ridiculous amenities. A custom perfume atomizer, stainless steel cocktail cups, memory seats. Yes, you read that correctly. A perfume atomizer. Because nothing says luxury like making your car smell like a department store. Each Brougham was hand-assembled, giving it a Rolls-Royce aura in an American shell. This wasn't mass production. This was automotive craftsmanship. Or at least, that's what Cadillac wanted you to believe. But beneath that lavish exterior were countless engineering headaches waiting to happen. The air suspension system was cutting edge for 1959. It was also notoriously unreliable. When it worked, it was smooth. When it didn't, which was often, you were stuck with a 5,000-pound paperweight. The fancy electrical features were super cool right up until they stopped working, which they did frequently. And the car's weight was so great that even the powerful V8 engine struggled to move it with confidence. City driving felt awkward, oversized, and cumbersome. Highway driving was better, but you were still piloting something that handled like a small building. Cadillac only produced 99 Eldorado Broughams that year. That low production number makes them rare collector's items today. But it also tells you something important. This car never achieved mass success. Not because it was too exclusive, but because it embodied a flawed idea. The notion that too much luxury is what buyers want. Turns out there is such a thing as too much. This car was a luxury disaster, a reminder that when you obsess over flash and forget function, you risk losing everything that makes a car valuable. Number 5. 1957 Ford Skyliner. Imagine driving a car that could transform from a coupe to a convertible with the flick of a switch. In the 1950s, that sounded like pure science fiction. But Ford made it a reality with the Skyliner retractable, the world's first mass-produced car with a fully automatic folding hardtop. It was spectacular, it was impressive. People would literally gather to watch the roof fold and unfold. However, behind the spectacular show was a network of headaches that would make a modern engineer weep. The Skyliner's roof system was an engineering marvel. 7 electric motors, 6 locking mechanisms, 4 lift jacks, and nearly 600 feet of wiring. When it worked, it was absolutely mesmerizing. But when just one motor failed, and they failed often, the whole system stopped. You were stuck with whatever position the roof was in when it broke. Half up, half down, didn't matter. It wasn't moving. Worse, the folded roof took up almost the entire trunk. Planning a long trip? Good luck fitting luggage? You might squeeze in a small overnight bag if you were lucky. Everything else was riding in the back seat. Add the extra weight from all the components and you had a car that was heavier, less fuel efficient, and handled worse than regular Ford versions. The weight distribution was all wrong, the handling was compromised. Everything about the actual driving experience suffered so Ford could show off their clever roof trick. Priced at nearly $3,000 at the time, over $33,000 today, buyers had to ask themselves a serious question. Is that roof ballet worth all these trade-offs? For most people, the answer was no. The Ford Skyliner retractable is a perfect example that impressive engineering doesn't always equal market success. It's a cautionary tale. When engineers overcomplicate things when they focus on being impressive instead of practical, drivers pay the price. In this case, that price was measured in constant repairs, no trunk space, and a car that spent more time in the shop than on the road. Number 4. 1958 Edsel. Speaking of automotive failures, we cannot skip the Edsel. Ford believed the Edsel would be their ace in the hole, a mid-range premium brand to fill the gap between Ford and Mercury. Instead of becoming a resounding success, the Edsel became one of the biggest failures in American automotive history. What went wrong? Everything. Absolutely everything. Ford placed immense expectations on the Edsel. The marketing, campaign was massive. The hype was unprecedented. They built this thing up like it was going to revolutionize the industry. And when the Edsels, like the Pacer or Ranger, finally arrived at dealerships, customers were stunned for all the wrong reasons. Its bizarre horse collar grille was widely mocked as awkward and ugly. Critics called it a toilet seat, or an Oldsmobile sucking a lemon. The comparisons were brutal and unfortunately accurate. Furthermore, the massive advertising campaign didn't match the real-world experience. Priced around $2,900 at the time, over $30,000 today, the Edsel was advertised as a mid-range luxury car. But the reality was disappointing. Poor build quality plagued every model. The Teletouch transmission, mounted in the steering wheel hub, was a fragile gimmick that broke constantly. Electrical issues were frequent. Paint quality was subpar. These cars felt cheap despite the premium price tag. To make matters worse, the Edsel launched during an economic recession. The idea of splurging on an unreliable car with a face only a mother could love didn't sit well with American buyers. Sales plummeted immediately. Dealerships stopped supporting it. Service became a nightmare. And within a few short years, the name Edsel vanished from American roads. Ford spent over $250 million on this project. That's real money, even for Ford. And it completely backfired. The Edsel became a punchline, a $250 million disaster, and a public embarrassment for Ford. Even today, calling something an Edsel means it's a spectacular failure. The Edsel stands as a clear lesson. No amount of marketing can save a flawed product. You can spend millions on advertising, but if the car is ugly, unreliable, and overpriced, nobody's buying. It was a dream that collapsed under the weight of overconfidence and a failure to truly understand the customer. Number 3. 1953 Kaiser Henry J or Corsair. Henry J sounds like an old friend, like someone's grandfather or your neighbor who tells the same stories every weekend. But in reality, it was an ambitious but ultimately failed attempt by a small automaker trying to survive against Detroit's Big Three. Kaiser built the Henry J as a genuinely cheap car. Compact, minimalist, inexpensive to produce. Their idea was simple. If we cut enough features, we can sell a new car for almost the price of a used one. A bold strategy on paper. But they forgot a crucial fact. People don't just want cheap, they want to feel respected. The Henry J lacked almost everything. No external trunk lid. You had to fold down the rear seat to access luggage. No glove box, no armrests, no passenger sun visor. Some early models didn't even have roll-down windows, just a fixed pane of glass. It was automotive minimalism taken to an insulting extreme. By 1953, Kaiser launched the Corsair version, trying to freshen up the Henry J with bright chrome, nicer fabric upholstery, and a glossy dashboard paint job. But a nicer exterior couldn't hide the naked reality underneath. The chassis was still short and awkward. The design felt unbalanced. Everything about it screamed cheap, not affordable. There's a difference. Under the hood, the modest 4 or 6-cylinder engine delivered efficient gas mileage. But it lacked any driving excitement whatsoever. The Henry J didn't feel like an automobile. It felt like a transportation appliance. The absolute bare minimum required to move from point A to point B. The fatal mistake was the price. Although affordable, it wasn't significantly cheaper than Ford or Chevrolet, which offered better-looking, better-equipped cars. As a result, the Henry J fell into no man's land. Not cheap enough to attract bargain hunters, not good enough to steal mainstream customers. By 1955, both the Henry J and the Kaiser brand disappeared from the American automotive market. They tried to compete on price while cutting too many corners. Turns out, even budget-conscious buyers have standards. Number 2. 1951 Crosley Hot Shot. It looks like a toy. Seriously, at first glance, you'd think it was something a child might peddle around the neighborhood. But the 1951 Crosley Hot Shot was once hailed as America's first true post-war sports car. It was born from the idea of Powell Crosley Jr., a business genius known for affordable radios and refrigerators. His logic was simple. If I can bring home appliances to every home, why not a sports car? The idea sounded promising. A small, affordable, fun-to-drive roadster for everyone. Sports cars for the masses. But in reality, the Hot Shot became a classic example of how romantic ideas often clash with harsh engineering reality. Less than 10 feet long, weighing only 1,100 pounds, this car had no doors. To get in, you had to climb over the sides like you were entering a bathtub. No roof, no real windshield, no heating system. This was a car built for the brave. Or the foolish. Probably both. Under the hood was a tiny 724cc 4-cylinder engine, producing just 26.5 horsepower. To put that in perspective, that's less power than most modern lawnmowers. Thanks to its lightweight, the Hot Shot could still reach speeds of around 70 miles per hour. On winding roads, it offered an exhilarating driving feel. But on the highway, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. You were in a doorless bathtub doing 70 miles per hour surrounded by cars that weighed 4 times as much. Build quality was another weakness. The steel body was prone to rust and many Hot Shots fell apart within just a few years. With no side windows, no trunk, and no amenities whatsoever, owning one required real sacrifice. This wasn't a car. It was a lifestyle choice that most people immediately regretted. Still, Crosley was bold. They dared to be different. The Hot Shot even pulled off a surprising win in the 1950 Sebring 6-hour race. An incredible feat for a car with lawnmower equivalent power. That victory gave the Hot Shot legitimacy it probably didn't deserve. But racing success doesn't equal practical transportation. The Crosley Hot Shot proved you could build a sports car on a shoestring budget. but it also proved that maybe you shouldn't. Number 1. 1958 Sir Vival prototype. And finally, at number 1, we have something truly unique and never before seen. The 1958 Sir Vival. This wasn't a mass-produced car, it was a hand-built safety prototype created by engineer Walter C. Jerome. He was genuinely concerned that Detroit's lack of attention to safety had led to too many unnecessary deaths and injuries. Noble intentions, questionable execution. After about 10 years working on the chassis of a 1948 Hudson, he created this monstrosity. The most unique feature is undoubtedly its two-part articulated design. The engine and front wheels were separate from the main passenger compartment. This was intended to enhance protection in a collision. The theory was sound. The front section would absorb most of the impact force in a head-on collision, and the bending of the articulated body would reduce side impact force. In practice, this created a vehicle that steered like a drunken shopping cart. Another unique feature was the driver's raised turret-like cockpit, placed centrally and offering nearly 360-degree visibility thanks to the cylindrical glass. It looked like a military vehicle designed by someone who'd never actually seen one. The driver sat high above the passengers, commanding the vehicle like a tank operator. However, this car was never produced due to financial issues. The estimated cost was $10,000, while a 1958 Cadillac Series 62 cost about half that. Nobody was going to pay twice as much for an experimental safety vehicle that looked absolutely ridiculous. Some of its safety ideas like seatbelts, padded dashboards, reinforced bumpers, and side marker lights were mandated by the federal government a decade later. Jerome was right about what was needed. He was just spectacularly wrong about how to implement it. Although it was a prototype, the Sir Vival still exists today. It's a museum piece, a curiosity, and it's apparently quite difficult to drive. The front wheels don't turn. The entire front section is controlled by the articulation. Turning the steering wheel pivots the whole front end. This is heavy, awkward, and questionable at best. Handling and safety at high speeds are questionable, especially on wet roads. It's even doubted whether it's safe to drive above 40 miles per hour. The build quality is also quite rough. This is a prototype built in someone's garage over a decade. It shows. The Sir Vival is an extremely strange and unique example of silly but well-intentioned efforts in the 1950s. Walter Jerome saw a problem and tried to solve it. His solution was bizarre and impractical, but his heart was in the right place. Sometimes that has to count for something. Every car on today's list, no matter how strange it looked, how poorly it drove, or how much it screamed excess, played a role in shaping a bold and chaotic chapter of American automotive history. These weren't just failures. They were learning experiences. Each disaster taught designers and engineers what not to do. The 1950s were a wild time for American automotive design. Unchecked optimism, unlimited chrome, and absolutely no concept of restraint. If you like this video and want to join us in exploring more untold stories about the world of classic cars, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with friends who also love automotive history. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.